Hey, what's up guys, it's ApTreX here. Welcome back to a brand new amazing comparison of 3DS emulators for Android. In my last video, we saw how Citra Enhanced Edition has made an official comeback. Citra Enhanced Edition, if you guys don't already know, is the combination of Citra MMJ as well as official Citra Android with even the code of Lemonade 3DS emulator, so it is very optimized in terms of performance and compatibility. We'll be comparing its performance against the Lime 3DS emulator, which is once again a forked version of official Citra Android and its continuation after the official Citra Android was removed from its official GitHub page. Well, both of these emulators have very different settings in terms of performance tweaks, because in terms of Citra Enhanced Edition you get lot more options, but the settings which are similar are as follows. Limit speed percentage, make sure to disable this option no matter which 3DS emulator you might use. In terms of system, you don't really need to change anything. Let's go to graphics. Set the graphics API to Vulkan and SPRV shader generation should be enabled. Make sure to disable asynchronous shader compilation. Internal resolution will be going with 4x native resolution for our today's testing. Skip slow draw and skip texture copy are two of the features from Citra MMJ Android used to improve performance. Now both of these options are not available in Lime 3DS emulator. This shader cache has been enabled. Let's scroll down. Asynchronous custom texture loading is also enabled. In terms of debug, you will be able to find more settings compared to Lime 3DS emulator. So CPU clock speed, we have set it to 400%. New 3DS mode has been enabled, including CPU, JIT and hardware shader. VSync has been disabled. Disable this option if you want to get more than 30 or 60 FPS. Now there are three more options that are in the Citra Enhanced Edition. The first one is raise CPU ticks. This will improve performance on low-end Android devices. This is definitely recommended by the developer of Citra Enhanced Edition, but I'll disable it as the device which I'll be using for today's video is a very high-end Android device. Make sure to enable priority boost. It will improve performance in few games pretty easily without any major issue, at least in my testing. Enable core down count hack is also another good feature for low-end Android devices. It will decrease the heating issue and also reduce CPU usage, but the FPS might also go down by a little bit, only by a little bit though. Along with that, we also have a GPU driver that will be using. Both the emulators support custom graphics drivers, so we'll be using the latest Adreno A32 Turnip driver. Those are the best settings for Citra Enhanced Edition, and in terms of Lime 3DS emulator, I'll quickly show you everything. In terms of graphics settings, you don't get the Citra MMJ settings, and also in terms of debug, you don't get the extra features that I have just explained. With that being said, what are we waiting for? Let's start by testing out few games on both of these emulators. The first game which I'll be testing out is going to be Super Mario 3D Land, and the second game will be Pokemon. So right now we'll be testing out our games first on the Citra Enhanced Edition, and there we go, our game has successfully started. Let's just go ahead and swipe from the left. Afterwards, you can enable the overlays option as show FPS, so we can see how much FPS are we getting while emulating some 3DS games. You also get the tweak section. These are the special settings in Citra Enhanced Edition, so all of the following settings have been enabled for better performance. Anyways, there we go, our game has successfully started. Let's just go ahead and start a brand new game. Let's tap on the landscape screen layout and up, and make sure to tap on the side by side screen option. So once the game has successfully started, you'll be able to see that we are getting almost 100 plus FPS, no issues whatsoever while emulating this 3D game. You will be able to notice that there are no graphical issues whatsoever, and it's a bit difficult to play on these on-screen touch controls, and also at such high speed, like 100 FPS is just not playable. So that's why I'm not even able to play it properly. Just take a look at this. Anyways, as we saw, we get more than 100 FPS while emulating Super Mario 3D Land on the Citra Enhanced Edition. Let's just go ahead and open Lime 3DS emulator and see how well does this same game perform on this 3DS emulator. Alright, there we go guys, the cutscene is over and the game is about to start. So in this, I can notice some stuttering issues, but the FPS is also very similar to what we were getting previously. Though the texture which I am seeing, the graphics look way better, and the gameplay experience seems a bit smoother than that of Citra Enhanced Edition. But anyways though, the game is still stuttering. There are no graphical issues whatsoever, and in my opinion, the graphics of this game look a bit more detailed compared to that of Citra Enhanced Edition. Nonetheless, let's just go ahead and reopen Citra Enhanced Edition, and now we'll be testing out one of the best 3DS games of all time, Pokemon Sun, and this is going to be a proper heavy title, so we'll need to see how well does it actually work on our Android device. And the FPS that we are getting is more than 150, and one thing that I can tell you guys for sure is the fact that you will face no graphical issues whatsoever in Citra Enhanced Edition. That much I have experienced for myself. Alright, there we go guys, our game has successfully started. Now comes the part where 3D graphics will be loaded during the beginning of this game. So at the top left corner, you will be able to notice we are getting more than 100 FPS Now we'll need to check out how much FPS do we get in outside world scenarios, because the last time when I tested out Citra Enhanced Edition, I'll put the video on the iCard above of the Citra Enhanced emulator setup. We were getting more FPS than we ever got in any other 3ds emulator for Android. Anyways, at least inside house with 4x graphics resolution, we are getting almost 160 plus FPS, which is more than what I have ever seen in terms of 3ds simulation in my entire life. So that's pretty cool. I guess the RAM usage is also just about 1 GB, so even if you have low-end Android device with 3 to 4 GB of RAM, you will be able to emulate 3DS games like Pokemon Sun, and even with 4x graphics resolution, which I won't really recommend you guys. Anyways, let's grab our clothes and head outside, and I'll be back. Now that we have left our house, you'll be able to see a drop in frame rate. We are getting around 110 or 15 FPS, but for some reason the FPS is not really stable in Citra Enhanced Edition. It's all over the place. Like sometimes you get 90 FPS, sometimes you get 115 FPS, which is a bit inconclusive, and it can cause some stuttering issues. In 3D world scenarios, you will be able to notice that we are getting anywhere from 90 to 100 FPS. So let's move on towards the Lime 3DS Simulator Pokemon Sun test. So I'll open the same game, I'll skip the cutscenes, and I'll be back. Alright, there we go guys. We are able to see that at least inside house the FPS is not that great compared to Citra Enhanced Edition. Now in Citra Enhanced Edition, in the same scenario, we were getting around 165 FPS, but in Lime 3DS Simulator you will be able to see it's not exceeding over 140 FPS. Now 140 FPS is not bad at all, but still it's not as good as the Citra Enhanced Edition. But once again, the graphics look a bit more detailed compared to that of Citra Enhanced Edition. So obviously you get two options. If you want better graphics, then you can go with Lime 3DS Emulator. If you want better performance and low-end device proper support, then you can go with Citra Enhanced Edition. But still, the test is inconclusive. We'll need to go outside house to see the proper FPS results and consider which one works the best for us. So here's the moment of truth. We have just left our house and the FPS has dropped down to 68, which was very huge drop. This did not happen with Citra Enhanced Edition, but nonetheless, even in outside world you will be able to see that the FPS is not going over 100 unlike the Citra Enhanced Edition. So immediately you can see a huge difference in terms of frame rate. Though the FPS in the Lime 3DS Emulator is pretty stable, it's just not as much as the Citra Enhanced Edition. So this answers our question in 100% clarity. If you want better graphics resolution, better graphics quality, no graphical issues, then go with Lime 3DS Emulator. But if you want more customization, better performance, and better low-end Android device support, then go with Citra Enhanced Edition. I have already made a setup video on both of these emulators, which you can check on the iCard above. That's going to be it for today's video though. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on all notification as I upload similar videos on my channel. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.